The vast darkness of space lit up as hundreds of alien ships emerged from hyperspace. Their massive vessels gleamed under distant starlight, each one dwarfing even the largest human cargo ships. The alien coalition fleet, representing 7 different species, had come to make a statement. This sector of space belonged to them. Admiral Tom Wilson stood on the bridge of the HMS Defiant, watching the tactical display with practiced calm. Around him, his crew worked efficiently at their stations, monitoring the incoming fleet with professional detachment. The alien armada outnumbered his small fleet of 15 ships by nearly 20 to 1. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the alien flagship," reported Jack Brown, the communications officer. His fingers moved steadily across the holographic interface, decoding the incoming signal. "Put it through," Wilson ordered, straightening his uniform. He knew what was coming. A towering figure appeared on the main screen. The alien commander, covered in iridescent scales and wearing an ornate military uniform, looked down at Wilson with obvious disdain. "This is Grand Marshal Kex of the Allied Species Coalition. Your presence in this sector is unauthorized. Those tiny vessels you call ships are an insult to proper spacefaring civilizations." The alien's translator conveyed his contempt perfectly. Wilson kept his face neutral, though he noticed several of his bridge crew hiding small smiles. "This is Admiral Thomas Wilson of the Earth Defense Fleet. We respectfully disagree with your assessment of this sector. It falls within human territory, as per the Galactic Mapping Convention." The alien commander's laugh boomed through the speakers. "Human territory? Your species barely learned to break light speed 50 years ago. These pathetic excuses for warships prove you don't belong among the stars. Look at them. They're barely larger than our support vessels." The tactical display showed the alien fleet spreading out in an attack formation. Their massive ships, some stretching several kilometers in length, moved with surprising grace for their size. "Last warning, humans. Retreat to your homeworld, or we will demonstrate real military power," Kex declared. Wilson glanced at his tactical officer, Mary Roberts. She nodded slightly. All systems were ready. "I'm afraid we can't do that, Grand Marshal," Wilson replied calmly. "This sector remains under human protection." The alien commander's expression shifted from amusement to anger. "Then you choose humiliation. Your primitive vessels won't last 5 minutes against our fleet. We will broadcast your destruction across all channels as a lesson to other upstart species." The transmission cut off. Wilson took a deep breath and pressed the fleet-wide communication button. "All ships, this is Admiral Wilson. You know the drill. Standard defensive formation Delta. Remember your training and remember, no showing off until my mark." The 15 human ships moved into position, appearing absurdly small compared to the approaching alien armada. From the outside, they looked like simple cylindrical vessels with minimal weaponry or defenses. "Sir, they're charging weapons," Roberts reported. "Multiple targeting locks detected." "Let them come," Wilson said quietly. "Defensive screens at maximum. No return fire until they make the first move." The bridge crew watched as the alien fleet drew closer. Their massive ships blocked out the stars, weapon ports glowing with building energy. The alien commander's voice broadcast on all frequencies, clearly meant to demoralize the human forces. "Look at them. These humans think they can stand against us with their toy ships. This sector will be cleansed of their embarrassing presence within the hour." Laughter from multiple alien crews echoed through the channels. Wilson's crew remained focused on their tasks, some shaking their heads at the aliens' arrogance. "Incoming fire in 10 seconds, Roberts announced. "They're starting with their medium weapons. Apparently, they don't think we're worth using their heavy artillery." Wilson allowed himself a small smile. Typical. They always underestimate us. He opened the fleet channel again. "All ships, maintain position. Let them have their fun for now. Show them what human engineering can take." The alien fleet's first volley lit up space like artificial stars. Thousands of energy beams and projectiles streaming toward the human ships. They clearly expected the small vessels to break formation or be destroyed immediately. They weren't expecting what happened next. The seemingly primitive human ships stood their ground, their basic defensive screens flaring bright blue as they absorbed the attack without a scratch. The aliens' confident laughter died in their throats. The battle for Sector 117 was about to teach them a lesson about judging humans by their size. Grand Marshal Kex stared at his tactical display in disbelief. The human ships hadn't just survived the first barrage. They'd shrugged it off like rain on a window. His bridge crew frantically checked their instruments, convinced there must be some malfunction. Impossible. Kex slammed his scaled fist on his command chair. Launch the fighter squadrons. All ships switch to heavy weapons. These humans must have some trick to their shields, but they'll break under real firepower. Across the coalition fleet, launch bays opened like gaping mouths, disgorging swarms of fighter craft. Thousands of smaller vessels joined the capital ships, creating a wall of advancing firepower that would overwhelm any normal defense. On the HMS Defiant, Admiral Wilson watched the approaching fighters with practiced calm. "Right on schedule," he muttered, then opened the fleet channel. "All ships, initiate point defense systems. Standard containment protocols." The response from his captains was immediate. Suddenly, the seemingly smooth hulls of the human vessels transformed. Hundreds of small ports opened along their length, revealing what looked like tiny turrets. "Sir, enemy fighters entering optimal range in 15 seconds, reported Roberts from her tactical station. Wilson nodded. "Let's show them why size doesn't matter. All ships, you are cleared to engage. Point defense only." The alien fighters streaked forward, their pilots confident in their overwhelming numbers. They expected an easy victory against the minimal defenses their scans had detected. What they got instead was a lesson in human engineering. The small turrets on the human ships came to life. Instead of traditional energy weapons or projectiles, they emitted precise pulses of graviton beams, technology the aliens had thought impossible to miniaturize. Each pulse caught a fighter and simply crushed it, the gravitational forces turning advanced war machines into balls of compressed metal. "How?" Kex demanded, watching fighters disappear by the dozens. "Their ships don't have room for such weapons." The human point defense systems were a symphony of destruction. Not a single shot was wasted. Each turret tracked multiple targets, creating a deadly web that fighter pilots couldn't escape. Within minutes, half the alien fighter screen had been eliminated. Wilson's voice came across all channels, calm and professional. "Grand Marshal Kex, I suggest you recall your remaining fighters. We'd prefer to avoid unnecessary loss of life." "Arrogant humans," Kex roared. "All capital ships, advance. Full power to forward batteries. We'll see how their shields handle our main guns." The massive alien vessels moved forward, their kilometer-long weapons charging with enough power to shatter moons. Energy built up in massive arrays, promising devastation on an unprecedented scale. On the Defiant, Wilson sighed. "They never learn. All ships, prepare for Phase 2. Engineer Thompson, how are the compression systems?" "Running at optimal efficiency, sir," Thompson replied from his station. "Ready when you are." The alien fleet fired. Beams of destructive energy, each one powerful enough to vaporize a small city, lanced toward the human ships. The space between the fleets lit up brighter than a sun. But instead of impacting the human shields, something strange happened. The energy beams seemed to twist and curve, missing their targets entirely. The human ships hadn't moved. The space around them had. "What sorcery is this?" Kex demanded, watching his fleet's most powerful weapons bend harmlessly away. "Not sorcery, Grand Marshal. Just good science." Wilson's voice carried a hint of amusement. "You see, while you were busy building bigger ships and bigger guns, we focused on understanding space itself. Those primitive cylindrical shapes you mocked, they're actually gravity manipulation engines." As if to demonstrate his point, The human ships began to move in ways that should have been impossible. They slid through space as if friction didn't exist, creating their own corridors of twisted spacetime. The alien fleet's targeting systems couldn't keep up. Their massive weapons were useless against ships that could locally alter the laws of physics. "Last chance, Grand Marshal," Wilson offered. "You can retreat now, or we can show you what our ships can really do when we stop playing defensive." The alien bridge crew looked at their commander nervously. They had just watched their finest weapons prove completely ineffective against vessels a fraction of their size. Kex gripped his command chair tightly, his scales changing color with rage. "Never. All ships, prepare for close-range combat. We'll destroy these humans at point-blank range if we have to." Wilson shook his head. "Very well. All ships, prepare for transformation sequence. Let's show them why humans build small." The real battle was about to begin. The alien fleet closed in, their massive ships forming a tight ring around the smaller human vessels. Grand Marshal Kex was certain that at point-blank range, no amount of gravity manipulation could save the humans from their weapons. "Surround them. No escape now," Kex commanded, his voice booming through the coalition fleet's channels. "These humans will learn what real space warfare means." On the bridge of the HMS Defiant, Admiral Wilson allowed himself a small smile. "All ships, begin transformation sequence. Engineer Thompson, start the dimensional expansion." "Aye, sir," Thompson replied, his fingers dancing across his console. Unlocking compression seals now. What happened next would be talked about in alien military academies for centuries to come. The small human ships began to change. Their smooth hulls split along previously invisible seams. Sections of the ship started to unfold like blooming flowers made of metal and energy. But they weren't just unfolding in normal space. They were expanding from compressed dimensions. "By the first stars," Kex whispered, watching in horror as the human vessels grew. Where there had been 15 small ships, now 15 massive battle stations emerged. Each one now matched his largest vessels in size, but with a complexity of design that made alien technology look primitive. The HMS Defiant's transformation was particularly impressive. Layers of armor and weapons platforms extended outward in a geometrically perfect pattern. What had appeared to be a simple cylindrical ship was now a fortress of advanced technology, bristling with weapon systems that had been hidden in compressed space. "You see, Grand Marshal," Wilson's voice came through clear and calm. "We humans learned early that bigger isn't always better. But sometimes it's nice to have both options." The alien fleet's tight formation had now become a deadly trap for them. They were too close to each other to maneuver effectively against the newly revealed human battle stations. "How is this possible?" Kex demanded. "No species has mastered dimensional compression to this degree." "That's because most species try to compress space around their ships," Wilson explained. "We compress our ships themselves. Each vessel you see is actually constructed in 11 dimensions, then compressed down for travel. More efficient that way." The transformed human fleet now dominated the battlefield. What had looked like simple point defense turrets were revealed to be the tips of massive weapon arrays. The graviton beams that had swatted fighters from space were merely the smallest weapons in their arsenal. "All ships, power up main batteries," Wilson commanded. "Let's show them what human engineering can really do." The battle stations hummed with energy. Weapon ports that had been hidden in compressed space opened, revealing technology that the aliens had thought was theoretical. Quantum phase cannons, dark matter projectors, and antimatter pulse arrays, all miniaturized and perfected by human engineers. "This is your final warning, Grand Marshal," Wilson announced. "Your fleet is surrounded, outgunned, and in a tactically impossible position. Surrender now, and we can avoid further bloodshed." On his flagship's bridge, Kex watched his tactical officers frantically analyzing the human ships. Their scans showed power readings that shouldn't have been possible in vessels of any size. The humans hadn't just matched alien technology. They'd exceeded it in ways that defied explanation. "Sir," one of Kex's officers reported, voice shaking, their weapon systems. They're operating on principles we've only theorized about. One hit from those quantum phase cannons could tear a ship apart at the atomic level. The human battle stations continued their transformation, extending secondary and tertiary weapon arrays. Fields of controlled quantum foam surrounded their hulls, making them practically invulnerable to conventional weapons. How? Kex asked, more to himself than his crew. How did we not know they were this advanced? Because you assumed, Grand Marshal, Wilson's voice replied, somehow having heard the question. You assumed that because we're new to space, because we build smaller ships, we must be primitive. You forgot the most important rule of warfare. Never underestimate your opponent. The human fleet's weapons locked onto their targets. Every alien ship now had multiple quantum phase cannons aimed at their critical systems. Kex looked at his fleet's position, at the overwhelming firepower now aimed at his ships, and at the impossible technology the humans had revealed. For the first time in his military career, he felt true fear. The next few moments would decide not just the fate of this battle, but the future of human-alien relations for generations to come. The standoff lasted for exactly 30 seconds. Then one of the alien ships, a heavy cruiser on the outer edge of their formation, panicked and fired its main weapons. The beam of concentrated plasma streaked toward the HMS Defiant. What happened next changed every alien's understanding of human technology forever. The plasma beam hit what looked like empty space 3 kilometers from the Defiant's hull. Instead of continuing forward, it simply stopped. Then, to the amazement of the alien observers, the energy began to spiral inward, forming a perfect sphere. Thank you for the donation. Wilson's voice carried across all channels. We'll put that energy to good use. The Defiant's quantum field matrices absorbed the plasma completely, converting it into usable power. The battle station's energy readings spiked even higher. Impossible, one of Kex's science officers shouted. They've mastered zero-point energy conversion. That technology should be theoretical. Wilson's voice came through again, patient as a teacher with a slow student. We found that most theoretical technologies just needed a fresh perspective. For instance, your plasma weapons are quite good, but they waste about 60% of their potential energy. We fixed that problem years ago. To demonstrate his point, the Defiant released a tiny fraction of its stored energy through one of its smaller weapon ports. A pencil-thin beam of pure white light struck the alien cruiser that had fired. The beam didn't explode or destroy the ship. Instead, every electronic system on board simply went dark. That was approximately 1% of the energy your ship just gave us, Wilson explained. Focused through a quantum lens and converted to an electromagnetic pulse. Your ship's crew is completely safe, but they'll need a few hours to restore power. Across the battlefield, other human battle stations demonstrated similarly advanced capabilities. One created a localized time dilation field, causing a group of alien destroyers to move in slow motion. Another generated a quantum entanglement web that linked several enemy ships together, forcing them to move as one unwieldy unit. As you can see, Wilson continued, we've had time to perfect a few interesting tricks. Your coalition isn't the first group to underestimate humanity. You're just the largest so far. On his flagship's bridge, Kex watched in growing despair as his fleet's most advanced weapons proved worse than useless against the human defenses. Each attack was either absorbed, redirected, or simply ignored. Sir, his tactical officer reported, we're detecting some kind of scanning beam from the human ships. It's reading our entire database. Our firewalls aren't even slowing it down. Wilson nodded to his communications officer. We finished analyzing your tactical database, Grand Marshal. Interesting strategy you had planned. Using your larger ships to shield the smaller ones while you attempted to breach our defenses with concentrated fire. It might have worked if we were the primitive species you assumed we were. The human battle stations shifted positions slightly, their movement demonstrating a level of precision that made the alien fleet's formation look clumsy in comparison. Each station could predict and compensate for the gravitational effects of every object within 1 million kilometers, moving through space with perfect efficiency. What we don't understand, Wilson added, is why you chose conflict. Our diplomatic channels have been open since we entered the sector. We've made no aggressive moves. We even shared some of our basic medical technology as a gesture of goodwill. Kex's scales shifted color in embarrassment. The basic medical technology the humans had shared had revolutionized several fields of alien medicine. If that was their basic technology, your species. Kex spoke carefully now. How did you advance so quickly? Necessity and curiosity, Wilson replied. Earth isn't the most hospitable world. We learned early that we needed to be clever to survive. When we reached space, we applied the same principles. Why build bigger ships when we could build smarter ones? Why waste energy on massive weapons when precision could accomplish more? The transformed human fleet hung in space like a work of art, each battle station a perfect blend of form and function. Their very presence seemed to bend the fabric of reality around them, creating patterns in space-time that the alien sensors couldn't even properly measure. The message was clear. Humanity hadn't just joined the galactic community. They had quietly revolutionized it. And this was just what they were willing to show. The silence that followed was broken by chaos in the alien fleet. Several ships attempted to flee, their engines straining at maximum power. Others turned their weapons on fellow coalition vessels, decades-old rivalries erupting under the stress of certain defeat. All ships, hold position. Kex commanded, but his authority was already crumbling. 3 of the alien species in his coalition broke formation, their ships scattering in different directions. Admiral Wilson watched the disorder with a slight frown. This isn't necessary, he broadcast. All fleeing vessels, be advised. We have no intention of destroying your ships or harming your crews. To demonstrate, the human battle stations created a series of quantum corridors, visible tunnels through space that offered safe passage away from the battlefield. At the same time, they established containment fields around the ships that had turned hostile toward their former allies. Sir, reported Thompson from his engineering station on the Defiant, detecting power buildups in several alien vessels. Looks like they're trying to initiate emergency warp jumps. Wilson shook his head. They really don't learn. Enable the gravity locks. The human battle stations pulsed with energy. Invisible fields of controlled gravitational force expanded outward, catching the fleeing ships like insects in amber. Their warp drives screamed in protest, then shut down to prevent catastrophic failure. That was dangerous, Wilson transmitted to the captured ships. A warp jump this close to a quantum field could have torn your ships apart. Please, remain calm. We're not your enemies unless you force us to be. On his flagship, Kex watched his mighty fleet fall apart. A third of his ships were trapped in human containment fields. Another third had attempted to flee and were now held in gravity locks. The remaining vessels, including his own, were surrounded by human battle stations that had proven impossible to harm. Perhaps, Kex said slowly, his translator struggling to convey his complex emotions, we should discuss terms. A wise choice, Wilson replied. But first, please order your remaining ships to power down their weapons. We've had enough excitement for one day. Before Kex could respond, one of his most aggressive commanders decided to go down fighting. The alien dreadnought Eternal Glory, a ship nearly as large as a small moon, fired everything it had at the nearest human battle station. The result was both spectacular and terrible. The human vessel, which had begun as the small HMS Thunder, didn't attempt to absorb or deflect the barrage. Instead, it phase-shifted, literally moving between dimensions to let the attacks pass harmlessly through the space it had occupied. When the Thunder reappeared, it had split into 3 identical copies, each operating in slightly different dimensional phases. The Dreadnought's sensors couldn't determine which was real, and its computers froze trying to calculate targeting solutions. That's quite enough of that, came the voice of Captain Robert Dale from the Thunder. His battle station's triple images converged on the dreadnought, surrounding it in a triangular formation. Grand Marshal, please control your commanders, or we'll be forced to demonstrate our offensive capabilities. Kex quickly ordered the Eternal Glory to stand down. He had seen enough to know that the humans had been playing defensive this entire time. He didn't want to discover what would happen if they decided to actually attack. Your terms, Kex said to Wilson, his voice heavy with defeat. What are they? Simple ones, Wilson replied. First, your coalition will recognize human territorial claims in this sector. Second, you'll establish proper diplomatic channels. Real ones this time, not just automated beacons. Third, we'll set up a cultural exchange program to prevent future misunderstandings. The terms were surprisingly lenient. No demands for technology, no territorial concessions beyond what the humans had already claimed, not even any punitive measures against the coalition. You're not demanding our surrender? Kex asked, confused. What would be the point? Wilson's image appeared on Kex's bridge screen, showing the human admiral standing calmly at his command station. We're not interested in dominance, Grand Marshal. We want cooperation. Today was simply a lesson about the importance of proper introductions. Around them, the transformed human battle stations began to emit a soft, pulsing light that somehow calmed the panicked alien crews. The message was clear. Humanity had the power to destroy them all, but chose not to. That, more than any weapon or technology, truly terrified the aliens. The next hour demonstrated why humans were becoming known across the galaxy not just for their technology, but for their efficiency. The human battle stations coordinated a complex rescue and containment operation that looked more like a well-rehearsed dance than a military action. The HMS Defiant extended quantum tethers to the damaged alien ships, stabilizing their failing systems. Other human vessels created temporary dimensional pockets to safely contain the radiation from overloaded engines. The Thunder, still split into 3 phases, helped guide the scattered alien fighters back to their carriers. Your engineering teams are cleared to begin repairs, Wilson informed the alien commanders. Our ships will provide power support and emergency containment as needed. Please inform your crews that there's no need for panic or hostile action. On his flagship, Kex watched in amazement as human repair drones swarmed out to assist damaged coalition vessels. The small machines worked with incredible precision, their quantum tools easily adapting to alien technology. I don't understand, Kex finally said. Why help us after we attacked you? Because that's what civilized species do, Wilson replied simply. Your coalition acted out of ignorance, not malice. We see no reason to compound the day's mistakes with cruelty. The human approach to victory was unlike anything in coalition military doctrine. Instead of disabling enemy ships and leaving them helpless, the humans were actively helping restore them to working order. Rather than demanding the surrender of alien crews, they were offering medical assistance and engineering support. Sir, reported Thompson from his station on the Defiant, we've stabilized the quantum core breach on the Eternal Glory. Their crew is safe now. The dreadnought that had tried to destroy the Thunder was now surrounded by human repair drones. Its commander, who had expected to die in glorious battle, instead watched human technology save his ship and crew. Your species, Kex observed, fights unlike any we have encountered. We prefer not to fight at all, Wilson explained. But when we must, we believe in ending conflicts properly. A beaten enemy can become a friend, but only if you treat them with respect. The human battle stations began to pulse with new energy patterns. Quantum fields expanded outward, but instead of containing or restricting the alien ships, these fields began repairing the damage to local space-time caused by the battle. Amazing, one of Kex's science officers muttered, watching his readings. They're not just cleaning up the damage. They're actually improving local space stability. Our ships will have better warp efficiency in this sector now. Wilson smiled at the observation. Consider it a gift. Clear space lanes benefit everyone. The human repair effort continued with remarkable speed. Ships that should have taken weeks to fix were restored to working order in hours. Crews that had been ready to fight to the death now watched in wonder as human technology turned potential destruction into renewal. There will be those in the coalition who won't accept this outcome, Kex warned. They'll see your mercy as weakness. They would be mistaken, Wilson replied calmly. We help you now because we choose to, not because we must. Those who mistake kindness for weakness often learn painful lessons. As if to emphasize his point, one of the human battle stations briefly dropped its dimensional cloak, revealing weapon systems that made even Kex's most advanced sensors overload. The message was clear. Human mercy came from strength, not fear. When your ships are repaired, Wilson continued, we'll provide you with coordinates for a diplomatic contact station. We expect representatives from your coalition within the month. We have much to discuss about the future of this sector. The human fleet's actions were reshaping more than just damaged ships. They were transforming the coalition's entire understanding of advanced civilization. Every alien crew member watching the repair operation was learning the same lesson. True power wasn't about destruction, but about having the ability to destroy and choosing not to. As the repair work neared completion, Kex looked at his tactical display. The human battle stations were still in perfect formation, their transformed forms representing technology centuries ahead of his fleet. Yet they were using that technology not to dominate, but to help. Perhaps, he thought, the coalition had needed this lesson. The galaxy was clearly a more complex place than they had imagined, and humanity was proving to be its most interesting teachers. 1 month after the battle that wasn't really a battle, Admiral Wilson stood in the newly constructed diplomatic exchange station orbiting the neutral world of Haven II. He watched through the quantum blast viewing wall as ships from 12 different alien species arrived for the first official Human Coalition Peace Conference. Quite a change from last month, Captain Dale commented, standing beside him. The Thunder's commander had been chosen as head of security for the conference. Amazing what a little understanding can accomplish, Wilson replied, watching the alien ships dock with perfect precision. The coalition vessels now moved carefully around human ships, maintaining respectful distances and following all suggested protocols. The station's main conference room filled with representatives from both sides. Kex, now serving as the coalition's chief diplomatic officer, led his delegation with a new humility that impressed even his own species. Before we begin, Kex addressed the gathered representatives. I must acknowledge something. We came to this sector believing we would find primitive vessels and inferior technology. What we found instead was a lesson in true advancement. The alien representatives murmured in agreement. In the months since the incident, stories of human technological capabilities had spread throughout coalition space. But more importantly, tales of human mercy and efficiency had traveled even faster. The coalition has existed for 3 centuries, Kex continued. In that time, we have judged species by the size of their ships, the power of their weapons, and the extent of their territories. Humanity has shown us the error of such thinking. Wilson stepped forward to address the gathering. The human admiral's presence commanded attention not through size or threat, but through the quiet confidence that had marked all his actions. We're here today not to discuss the past, but to build the future, Wilson began. Humanity offers the coalition not just peace, but partnership. We've already begun sharing our medical technology. Today, we propose expanding that exchange to include environmental restoration techniques, sustainable energy systems, and safe FTL navigation protocols. The alien representatives' data tablets filled with technical specifications that made even their most advanced scientists gasp. The humans weren't just offering cooperation, they were offering to help advance coalition technology by generations. In return, Wilson continued, we ask only for peace and cultural exchange. Your species have histories and knowledge spanning millennia. We believe that progress comes not from competition, but from understanding. One of the alien representatives, clearly struggling with the concept, raised an objection. But with your technology, you could dominate this entire sector. Why choose cooperation? Wilson smiled. Because domination is easy, cooperation is challenging, and humans, as you've learned, enjoy a good challenge. The gathering broke into discussion groups, with human and alien scientists eagerly sharing ideas. The coalition representatives were discovering that human advancement extended far beyond military technology. They had solutions to problems that had plagued alien societies for centuries. "A question, Admiral," Kex asked during a quiet moment. "Those small ships we first encountered, they weren't really small, were they? They were exactly the size you wanted them to be." "Of course," Wilson confirmed. "Just as we are exactly what we choose to be. Size, power, territory. These are not measures of civilization. How we use what we have, that's what matters." As the conference proceeded, news arrived from Coalition space. Other alien species, hearing of human capabilities and approaches, were requesting diplomatic contact. The galaxy was changing, not through force or fear, but through the power of demonstrated wisdom. "We still have much to learn," Kex admitted as the day drew to a close. "As do we," Wilson replied. "That's rather the point." The human battle stations, still in their transformed state, maintained their patrol of the sector. But now they served not as weapons of war, but as symbols of possibility. Every alien ship that passed them carried stories back to their worlds. Stories not of humanity's power to destroy, but of their choice to create. The tiny fleet that had been mocked was never tiny at all. It had been exactly what humanity intended. A lesson in looking beyond appearances, beyond assumptions, and beyond fear. As the conference ended and new partnerships began, one thing became clear to all species involved. The galaxy had entered a new age. And humanity, the species that built small ships containing impossible wonders, would help lead the way into that brighter future. The end.